It's Monday, December the 23rd, 9 p.m. in the DMV.
And 6 p.m. here in Los Angeles. I'm Jack Armstrong.
And I'm Sam Giacinto, and you're listening to Tech Talk Live. Welcome to the show. Chatter call in with your tech news. And again, lots to talk about in our short 5-day hiatus. It's a little bit insane, but we do have a full episode of content for you guys from just the last 5 days alone. Some real
Absolutely.
crazy developments happening in the AI space. For one, we have to talk about O3.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is OpenAI's new model that's coming before GPT-5. So it's going to be more powerful, of course, and also more expensive. So, um, yeah, I'm looking forward to when it comes out. Probably early January, it seems like. O3 Mini, of course, as well. And they are in testing, looking at an early 2025 release date. So, yeah, it should be cool.
Yeah, so I mean, several interesting things, and you mentioned ChatGPT 5. Again, we kind of return to OpenAI. They have some really great advancements, but their marketing department is is quite interesting. Apparently, they skipped O2, due to potential conflicts with the British telecommunications company of the same name, O2. And now we are looking at O3. Um, and I guess ChatGPT 5, maybe somewhere off in the sunset. I mean, for a company that has, essentially, I mean, one customer facing product, it's kind of crazy how they're kind of segmenting the O1 model. I mean, I guess you can use the O1 model within ChatGPT, and it's not called GPT, and it's not called GPT-5. It's, I don't know if there's kind of an aversion to using that number, but again, we're kind of in the naming limbo here. But as Jack said, it's a very interesting release, for a few reasons. Most notably, we can start really with the con of the situation is the current cost per task, is something that is a little deceptively presented, I guess, at least by OpenAI standards. We can look at a logarithmic scale graph, so scaling from 1 to 10 to 100 to 1,000. And the efficient version of O3 is going to put us back around 20 or so dollars per task, is kind
Wow.
of
Yeah,
the
that's a
current
lot.
cost. And to put that in perspective, O1 is looking, anywhere from $2 to $5, at least on the same graph. And this is from Francis Cholet. I want to say, sorry if I butchered your name. Software engineer and AI researcher. Check out his website at arcprize.org. It's essentially a, set of problems which, are non-public and are essentially a benchmark of, you know, general intelligence for specific models. So, it's more or less, a measure of a system, in terms of not only solving but adapting to a problem set, um, that kind of, tests a model's general purpose abilities rather than the skill itself. So it really is a true, um, you know, kind of a more true measure of at least the I guess you want to say like flexibility of these
Yeah.
platforms.
Well, the
And
reasoning too, right? Like, and also one thing we should note is the test time scaling. So how long it takes to give its response. So simply put, when like what makes this 4 times more expensive than O1, right? Like, it's part of it is reasoning, but also part of it maybe originality. I mean, each time you ask for a prompt, right, it is an original, you know, response. But it's interesting because it seems like you might have to wait maybe even 10 to 15 minutes in some cases before O3 might return an answer. Did you see that? Isn't that interesting?
well, and that's a good point. So there's essentially two versions of O3 that were tested. O3 low and O3 high. And sort of the rough difference between the two is essentially high efficiency and low efficiency. Um, you know, the low efficiency is approximately 172 times as compute heavy. And so what this kind of led to, at least in, really the rough testing that Francis did, was a 13.8-minute time per task versus a 1.3-minute time per task. So comparing the high efficiency, we're looking at, more or less a minute per task, and the low efficiency, which uses exponentially more compute, but scores about 8 or so percentage points higher on the test, clocking in around 14 minutes per task. So it's vastly, vastly more heavy as far as the resources go. The low efficiency model for that extra, you know, essentially 8% on the test, we look at sort of a task cost of well over $1,000 in that respect. So it's something where, we're at the point where we can achieve, quite advanced results, but the sort of performance and cost scaling isn't there. Um, and to put this in
Because you could
perspective,
pay a human, right? You could pay a human maybe less to come
well,
up with a
for now,
more
right?
high performing result. Yeah.
So, I mean, and essentially to put all this in perspective, I mean, we're talking about, a 76% score for the most efficient model. GPT-4o on this test scores 5%. So it's something where, GPT-4o scores 5%, O1 in the upper 20s to low 30s range as far as, you know, evaluating these sort of ill-structured problems. And O3, um, is at least the more efficient model is somewhat linear in terms of scoring a 76%, while being relatively, three-ish times more expensive. So at least the most efficient O3 model kind of scales somewhat linearly as far as, kind of output to input. But I think what has a lot of people scared is, we're rapidly approaching, at least human level performance as far as, um, this is concerned. I mean, it's within reach, and it's currently not financially feasible, yet theoretically possible. But will honestly, this needs to get into the hands of much more people. This is obviously one data set, one model. Um, and pricing and feature availability are still to be determined. So huge, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of, perhaps concern around this. But there's still a lot of unknowns. That being said, it's a significant leap forward in terms of adapting to novel tasks. It's not an incremental improvement, it's a breakthrough in that way.
Yeah.
So even
Well,
though it's not
mhm,
economical, right? Things have the habit of becoming economical.
yeah. Well, also it's interesting. So we should note that Gemini 2, Google just released the experimental advanced version as well. So Gemini 2.0 advanced. So this is a preview again. And yeah, I think it just seems like reasoning. I mean, so I guess it's interesting. I don't want to say it's interesting to evaluate how different models perform in reasoning, but like, um, I guess in AI, like it's thinking. I guess you could say maybe it's more accurate, right? When you type a prompt in, but also it's creating a very thorough. It's going deeper than before, maybe to create a very very logical conclusion with new information. Uh, so yeah, I don't know. And also, I think it's worth noting as well, like the $200 a month subscription that OpenAI just came out with, which sounds kind of crazy, but I don't know if it foreshadows that people are going to be paying this much in the future for AI. Like, it makes you wonder. Like, AI is very powerful, but like, do do people expect to budget for like their AI systems that run their life or help them run their life? We're not used to paying for Siri, that's for sure. So, um, thoughts on that, Sam?
Well, and I mean that's an interesting point, is right. Does this have to be another built-in subscription at this point? Um, I mean, I honestly, I don't know. Like, I kind of want to be on the side of, what this is, having an AI subscription is kind of necessary in this day and age, simply because no matter what you do on a daily basis, and again, you know, it genuinely could be anything. It's sort of, I have XYZ in my fridge. I would like a recipe. I have
Yeah,
a coding question. I'm planning a trip to Europe. What can I do if I'm in Spain for an 8-hour layover? And it's ability. I mean, it's, at a basic level, these technologies are reciting things from memory, but we're increasingly kind of bridging the gap between really sophisticated memory machines to something that can, genuinely provide at least a base level of reasoning. Um, as far as, is this true, human intelligence? Absolutely not. But, it's a very primitive kind of iteration that's happening where, just almost 2 short years ago. I mean, when did, you know, GPT-3, uh, I guess 3.5 was the first big, um, I don't know where I was when I first heard about AI, kind of the
hmm
origin story, right? I mean, because obviously this is sort of, you know, OpenAI has kind of been at it since June 2018. Um, but I think, I was, I guess, pretty late to the game with GPT 3.5. That was the first one I used. And I believe that was like, you know, I don't know, mid to late November 30th, 2022. is when
Yeah.
they released GPT 3.5, and that's when I think it started blowing up. And I mean, I'll confirm this with Google because I'm curious. You know, like when did Chat GPT start to become big? But I don't know. I mean, did you have a similar experience? I mean, I don't know.
Mm.
Like, when did you first hear about AI? And like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think 2022 things really took off because OpenAI released their ChatGPT app, and I think at the time that was kind of the start. There weren't many others training models like they had done. They obviously took the world by storm and kind of surprised everybody by how capable it was, and whether and answering your questions and writing, helping you write things or whatever. And so I think that, yeah, I mean, I feel like lately it's just been crazy, with Google and Anthropic and OpenAI, and then all the open source ones, Llama, Meta, etc. So I think, yeah, it's very fascinating seeing how AI has evolved, and I think a lot is in store for 2025. As we've got another week until we hit the new year, like it's coming so quickly, and I think we can look forward to ChatGPT 5, which, gosh, will have more context, better training, hopefully, yeah, more responses. And I don't think it's going to be cheap as well, because one of the stats, it seems like each time they're training the model, it costs roughly $500 million. So that's a lot of money, and obviously, then OpenAI is going to want to make their money back. So I think they're going to have to do a lot, and also people are going to have to start changing their mindset. I feel like this is one thing that people have not really gotten away from. I think people just think it's ChatGPT. They don't really see all of the uses for the O being Omni, right? I mean, this thing can write music. This thing can generate videos. These things, models can, I mean, AI can do so much more than just answering your questions and searching the internet. So I think from that perspective, yeah, people will have to do a lot to kind of change their mentality, I guess you could say. So shall be interesting to see how things wrap up. But yeah, we should also talk about some other news, Sam. Should we talk about the Apple doorbell camera with Face ID?
sure. So this is kind of an interesting rumor. At least that's kind of going around the interwebs. A lot of 9 to 5 Mac, Mashable, a lot of outlets have picked this one up. Apple is reportedly working on a smart doorbell with Face ID to authenticate you based on the same technology you've probably become accustomed to in your iPhone. Um, Kind of an interesting product niche. Personally, I think it's smart. I mean, honestly, I think as far as Apple's concerned, they've kind of filled out a lot of their traditional product categories. Um, Again, I'm not really placing much consideration to the Vision Pro, but I think really all of their other verticals, as far as you know, they're kind of making their bread and butter right now. They have a great MacBook lineup. It's they sort of have their product categories down pat. The whole, I don't know if you're familiar, but the Steve Jobs matrix, where it's like we're going to focus on desktops and laptops for the consumer and the professional, and that's going to be our four product matrix. When he came back to Apple in the late '90s when they were struggling, and they had 20 different products. Um, but I think they've now kind of filled out those four things, and they're kind of looking for a new frontier. It sounds like, especially between
Well,
this and the smart display we talked about a few weeks ago, kind of that home control center.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're so used to Ring cameras and Nest cameras and indoor, outdoor, home surveillance, whether it's for our pets or whether it's for maybe apartment buildings just to make them safer, or, maintenance in your apartment, or if someone wants to check out, the backyard when they're not home, or the front yard, or make sure packages are delivered safely. I feel like they're missing out if they don't get into the smart home, but they also have a lot of work to do, because I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't think the home pods are very I don't think they're very good in terms of Siri as an assistant. And I think if they don't incorporate, like, I mean, look, I think Apple Home automation, I think there's a lot of accessories that work with Apple Home, and I do think the smart home is very important for them to focus on. I do think Apple's, of course, we always talk about Apple and privacy and just well-designed technology. So it would be interesting to see with a doorbell with Face ID, that can verify your identity and then unlock your smart lock without needing to use a key. I think that's pretty cool. And I do think that, the Google camera for your doorbell or the Ring, I think people are really used to having these. Now, would it be a big enough upgrade for people to want to switch from what they're currently using? Or is this just going to be for new people, or when their old one stops working? I think that's going to be more of an interesting um, argument, because smart home technology is cool, but you don't want to be upgrading your doorbell every year, and so I think that also when you buy a doorbell, you want the battery to last if you're in an apartment, or if you can hardwire it, you want to make sure that the next one's going to be compatible with your installation. And so I think they have a lot of work to do. And yes, it will be interesting to see if this does come out next year, how it will be integrated, if the home control hub panel or iPad sort of home control center thing, probably with AI, if that also comes out around the same time. So I think it does look like it's highly rumored to have plans for smart home technology. And it also seems, of course, the Apple Car was talked about for a long time, and they did stop that project. So obviously now they also didn't get the response they were hoping for, I think, with the Vision Pro. So focusing on smart devices that are accessible to everybody, I think, is a very good option here. And I think doorbell cameras are great. I think, but also, I guess a better question, which if anybody can tweet us, that'd be cool. It would be great to start a conversation on doorbell cameras and indoor cameras. Do people really want these things? Like, I know that some people like them, some people don't, but like, and I know you don't have to have a camera. Like, if you don't have a pet, okay, but do you really need a camera in your apartment? It is interesting, you know.
Well, and I mean, to be completely honest, I think, I'm gonna go with the yes, simply because, people, you know, in that kind of for the same reason that the original founder of Ring was kind of laughed out of Shark Tank. I mean, you're essentially selling security, and that the emotion of fear is the strongest one you can have. So I
Yeah.
think the idea that people can monitor what's happening, it appeals to, a very lizard-like part of our psyche, when that you can see what's happening at all times. It's the eye in the sky, outside your door. Um, and that's something that, quite literally, um, I think is powerful for a lot of people. But also for Apple in that case, because again, like a doorbell used to be a weatherproof button. It would last 10, 20, 30 years. I mean, there was no life expectancy to it. But I guarantee when you start kind of cramming in, essentially all of this other technology, it turns them kind of into, um, you know, expendable technology devices. It's something where it's like, again, like, um, this is something that now has a lifespan. It's something that now needs to be replaced every 3 to 4 years. So I think,
Exactly.
Apple's
Yeah,
incredibly intelligent for getting into that space. And I think people want it. I mean,
that's true. I think it is a part of our culture in the sense that we get so many things delivered to our apartments. We want to know, or our homes, or whatever, our condos, our businesses, that we want to know who is coming. And I think it kind of, it's just an important part of what you have to do, I guess, now to have a smart doorbell. Um,
well,
so
yeah.
yeah. Well, I think in terms of what's already on the market, like Ring and Google with their Nest lineup, I think they have a good, and also Amazon has another one. What there's another one. Eufy, is that a popular brand? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
Um,
that's I would say so. So that's kind of a, I don't know if it's a subsidiary or a portion of Anchor. You may have known them for their chargers or cables or whatnot, but kind of a uh, you know, sub spin-off of that kind of overarching brand, but they have a wide range of kind of easy setup, intuitive home security. I mean, I know several people with, um, you know, both Eufy and then, Simply Safe is another huge player in the arena. Just kind of from a matter of, something that's plug and play and that has a simple, looking UI, I think is huge. Um, and I think there's a lot of potential in terms of, this is something that, again, people want to feel secure. So when you package that feeling into kind of a, easy to use and accessible package, that kind of becomes incredibly appealing for people.
yeah. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see when this comes out. Potentially WWDC in the spring, maybe. Could be a cool. I don't think it really. These rumors don't really seem to pinpoint an exact timing, but looks like Apple's got some smart home Face ID tech on the near future coming soon. So that'll be fascinating to see what comes out.
Well, yeah, and to be perfectly clear, I mean, this is still in the early rumor phase. I would be shocked if it did come out at WWDC next summer, but again, maybe Apple has a trick up their sleeve that we don't know about. So,
Yeah.
I would be pleasantly surprised if something like this came out that soon, and Apple was able to keep it under wraps for this long. I don't think we've really had a secret Apple product since, I mean, really, like, I mean, I would say the iPhone 10 was somewhat secretive. We knew it was coming, but it still kind of had that wow factor. Um, a lot of the kind of secrecy that Apple maintained, I mean, going back to the iPhone 4 days in 2010, we had Gizmodo and the journalist that had the phone and was, harassed and intimidated by it. We've kind of come a long way from like these leaks being so rare. It's almost like every other week there's something that we really hear with pretty vivid detail when it comes to what they're up to these days. So I want to be pleasantly surprised.
Well, yeah, it'll be fascinating. Well, I'm sure it is coming at some point. I do think Apple needs to and wants to be in the smart home space. So, also speaking of the home, we really should talk about some of these new Wi-Fi 7 routers and devices and mesh systems that are finally getting in the hands of people this month. So, it's kind of impressive to see what how Wi-Fi technology is really always evolving and improving our connectivity surrounding us. Should we start with the Ubiquity stuff? Ubiquity, I think this was actually earlier this month, so it does seem like the U7 and E7 campus antennas are really improving connectivity. So it's also worth noting, by the way, that the iPhone 16 Pro Maxes. So this is how early this stuff is, right? Does not support Wi-Fi 7 out of the box. Or excuse me, they do. So 16 is the first year. I think this was with the Pixel. My bad. I'm thinking the previous year phones. Pixel 8 did support Wi-Fi 7. Pixel 9s also support Wi-Fi 7. iPhone 16 do use Wi-Fi 7. So anyone with an iPhone 16 will start being able to take advantage of these faster throughput speeds with capable Wi-Fi router. So if you're near an updated router and you have an iPhone 16 or later, the latest phone at the moment, then yeah, be pleasantly surprised with some of these Wi-Fi 7 uh, improvements.
Well, so yeah, I mean, and essentially the biggest difference that we're talking about is the width of available channel. So Wi-Fi uses, radio frequencies, namely the actual frequencies are the same in that, we still have this, a similar band of frequency, if you will, but what Wi-Fi 7 has done is doubled the sort of the width of the highway, if you will, in terms of moving data through, your connection. So what that means is that we get, at least theoretically, according to the specification, again, entirely dependent on your equipment. And by that, I mean, again, every device. As Jack mentioned, you need a Wi-Fi 7 capable cell phone. You need a Wi-Fi 7 capable router. You need a Wi-Fi 7. I mean, you need, honestly, a cable too that can, support, the maximum bandwidth, again, is, theoretically, 46 gigabits per second. If you're trying to access something on your home video server, you know, every single component needs to be more or less, what's the path, what's the component with the most resistance in that scenario. So there's a lot to kind of unpack there. I think, will most people notice a measurable benefit to upgrading at this point? Probably not. Um, again, most of these routers will set you back around $500 at this point. And that kind of includes, the semi-pro slash prosumer models. Again, tons of routers available from the usual suspects. We have Eero, Netgear, TP-Link, um, sort of, the big players. And also, I mean, we have Unify on the kind of prosumer slash enterprise area, doing a lot as well with Wi-Fi 7. Um, so perhaps, sort of a future-proof um, alternative to something where, again, like, will it eventually become, more widely used? Perhaps. Um, but there's no real miracle in terms of, this isn't going to double the usable range. This isn't going to, you know, it's not essentially going to, it's not a,
It,
silver
it's
bullet
probably for
for
most
all your
people
Wi-Fi
not.
issues.
Yeah. Well, maybe with new gaming hardware that's coming out in the future, maybe with certain homes that need longer, like the speed at longer ranges. So there was an article that we were talking about earlier about a, I guess, cabin. They had like multiple. Anyway, they have multiple cabins, and they want their home to be able to connect to the kid's back cabin, right? And so I thought it was interesting that to make a mesh network, with Wi-Fi 7 was so much easier for them because of the extended range. So that's an interesting use case. Also, I think at schools with more kids and covering larger areas and more devices at larger areas. So I mean, there are benefits, but I think most people don't need to be upgrading their router every year. But it also should be worth noting that if you have an old router and haven't upgraded it for over 5 years, you might want to be aware that in the future, you might want to get something within the next few years, because routers do have a lifespan, and the performance after, I'd say, maybe 7 years does decline. So keeping that in mind, you don't want to neglect your router because so many devices are connecting to it, and we're using our phones and upgrading our phones and upgrading our computers. And you don't want to forget about, hey, we have Wi-Fi 7 now. So going forward might be a good thing to consider. So it's it's here, Wi-Fi 7. And I think Ubiquity with the Unify series, as you're talking about, is probably a pretty nice option, but they're a little more complicated maybe to set up than your average plug and play router or your average router that just comes with your internet service. So I think it's worth exploring your options. Google also has. Does Google have a new Wi-Fi 7 router yet? I don't know. Google had obviously some home equipment that they were trying to get in the router game as well. I don't think it's
They
Wi-Fi
currently
7
have
though.
a 6E, the Nest Wi-Fi Pro. They actually are running, running a sale on it essentially. It's a solid option. But it's not, it's not what we're talking about. Again,
Yeah.
a lot of this kind of depends on, you need devices that support it. Again, like in terms of value, right? If you can get a Wi-Fi 6E set up for half the price, it's probably not a bad deal right now. A lot of the stuff is, theoretical. And again, as Jack said, if you do have something that's long in the tooth, 5 years old, now's a great time to upgrade, to just get in the ground floor of that standard, just so you can keep it for another 5 years and be pretty happy. I think in 5 years, we'll be at the point where a lot of devices will be able to utilize the technology that you're kind of buying today. I will never use the term future proof, but it does give you a little bit more runway, as far as, hey, like this is something you'll be able to use for a decent period of time, without, you know, essentially being constricted.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Wi-Fi is always changing. Antennas are always changing, and it's interesting. Also, speaking, I want to touch on it because anyone who listens to our show regularly knows we talk about Helium. Quick little Helium mobile update is they are abandoning their original CBRS antenna network. So now they're going only to Wi-Fi. So speaking of Wi-Fi and mesh networks and Wi-Fi 7, they don't have Wi-Fi 7 yet, but Wi-Fi 7, of course, is still extremely new, and they are supporting the owners by allowing the owners of CBRS equipment to exchange their networking equipment with the new hotspot. So that's kind of a nice upgrade, but obviously was a pretty unique differentiator to any Helium Foundation members. So there's thousands of people around the world that have been helping to build this network, and not really a rug pull, but kind of a change of course to Wi-Fi, because Wi-Fi is just so much easier and so much more popular, and people know they could just kind of plug it into the router or talk to their internet service provider and connect it. So people, I think, just understand Wi-Fi more, and I think people understand numbers. So Wi-Fi 7, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 5, it's definitely worth educating yourself on what type of network you have, and yeah, going into the future, staying updated. Nothing's future proof, Sam. That's a good way to put it, but you will definitely be able to get more out of your hardware for longer if you upgrade. So interesting Wi-Fi news going into 2025. And also, Sam, you were telling me about PayPal's Honey extension. So why is it? So this is frustrating a lot of online creators because they're not, the attribution is no longer, I guess it's being kind of stolen from the Honey
Well, I
extension.
mean, yeah, no, so this is kind of a breaking news, at least in the making waves in the YouTube space, but I mean, really everybody should be somewhat concerned about it. Honey. So Honey, the ever popular browser extension that claims to find you the best deals possible. When you're checking out at an online store, has kind of been found to be a little bit sneaky in how it manages commissions for creators. Not only creators, but I mean also for you as the consumer. So in a nutshell, if somebody you like online recommends a product, you may click on a link. That link contains their unique identifier. So they get credit essentially if you purchase this item and a small kickback. So what Honey will do is they'll hijack that identifier, put their own identifier in, and basically claim credit for any and every sale that you use Honey for, even if it doesn't find any benefit or discount. And it gets a little bit more, kind of insidious because even if Honey is not available on the website, it will, ask you, hey, do you want Honey Gold, our rewards program? You'll get 3% back. Just click the dancing coin icon. And, essentially what happens is, well, PayPal will pocket, the full reward, which could be much more than 3% of your purchase. One of the most egregious examples was from a creator who has an affiliate link to NordVPN. We're not sponsored by them, just an example. But every time a customer would use this link, they would get $35. So instead of getting $35, a user with Honey Gold would use the browser extension and get 89 cents for their purchase instead of the $35 commission. So what happens to the rest of that? Well, one can only assume that it goes straight to our friends at PayPal. And this
Yeah,
is
instead of
not
the creator
only,
that recommended it. Yeah.
they get the whole 5-course dinner and you get a crumb. I mean, that is essentially, it's a little bit, you know, if not outright illegal, it's just sort of a very like, it's kind of exploiting the whole, affiliate marketing slash, promotional link, share a product you enjoy with your friend and you'll get a commission. Just kidding. PayPal gets the commission because they were the
Yeah.
last click in that chain. So that's kind of, a very brief summary. There's a lot more going on behind the scenes. And, even for merchants, this really isn't something that, um, is good for them either. Part two, at least, of the original investigative reporting is coming soon. So I'm excited to see, what more or less happens with that. But if you do use honey, um, consider not, you know, half the time it may not even apply the best coupon.
Yeah.
Merchants get to choose which coupons honey selects anyway. So sort of the whole marketing of, this will ultimately always find you the best deal and you don't have to worry about it. It's just all BS. So to save you, 5 minutes, honey's BS, uninstall it, you know, save yourself the grief from that. But I don't know. In some ways, it's a very deceptive, if not outright fraudulent representation of um, what it's doing, in a
Yeah,
sense.
that's awful. That is really awful. Kind of hijacking the affiliate marketing system for PayPal's gain. So, yeah, if anybody has this extension on their computer, search it. Go to your browser settings, and yeah, I would not support Honey. And also, it's worth noting that, I mean, maybe I'm wrong in this. I mean, I've used Honey in the past, but even just a quick Google search, like, you can easily compare prices in other ways than with an extension, tracking your stuff for you. So I think it's awful that they're up to this behavior. And yeah, a lot of creators rely on this affiliate income. A lot of creators, when they recommend products, they really do benefit from their affiliate commissions. This is part of their income. This is part of one of their sources, and you as a viewer and as a supporter of that creator, that you're, if you do decide to make a purchase, which no pressure, but yeah, by clicking on that link, you really are helping support them. And I think that for Honey and PayPal to just kind of come in and do this type of thing, God, that's awful. It really, really, really is kind of bad behavior. So yeah,
Well,
probably.
and we're not immune to it either. I
Yeah.
mean, we have an affiliate link for beyondsunset.ai. Great to-do list. Check it out. Tech Talk Live is our code. But if someone did use that and has the honey extension, we would not see any of that support for the show. And that's like,
Which is
again,
crazy.
I feel like this is a very common, a lot of creators do this. It's just sort of, again, like, there is a perverse incentive there, for people to recommend things, obviously, but the ultimate incentive is to recommend things you like and you get rewarded for spreading the word.
Yeah.
And we hope to bring that neutral kind of journalism to a space that desperately needs it. But again, this kind of takes the whole, really that whole economy, whether it is genuine or not, and flips it on its head where, hey, we're not going to really reward anybody except ourselves because we were here at the last second. And, other than that, for some of the stuff, they don't even provide value to the user beyond, kind of a dancing coin that appears in your browser that says click me. It's cute, right?
Yeah.
But it makes PayPal, you know, millions, if not more, in revenue simply from being the middleman for every single transaction that goes through it. So kind of crazy
Yeah.
stuff. And it really shocked me that it took people this long to realize, but
Oh yeah.
also, you
Mhm.
know, it's it's something that also is just it's difficult to uncover, but also, hey, maybe you want to trust something, that claims to do what it says. I mean, I guess I'm just, it's like, am I crazy for wanting to trust something? Maybe,
Well, this is part
but
of this is part of an ongoing problem, I think, in our country, right? With distrust of large corporations. When corporations get large, it we don't we start not trusting them anymore. I mean, they're almost too big to trust. I mean, if that's even something to say, like it's not to get political with the health insurance for profit industry, but whether it's that, whether it's finance, whether it's even payment networks like Visa and PayPal and Mastercard and all these, I mean, they're taking fees, interchange fees, and merchant and charging everybody fees just for the privilege. I mean, we take it for granted because I guess that's kind of what you have to do. But the amount of like money that these corporations are taking from every single transaction in the world, I mean, it's really crazy. And I think this little extension is just another way that a huge company like PayPal is kind of getting in the way of that creator that recommended a product that they're going to get a little commission for. And I think, I think people also expect that and they don't. I think referral programs are very common. Now what's not common is extensions like Honey that just take the rewards and get in the middle and kind of hijack that last little process so that your click from that affiliate can't be tracked, and instead the credit goes to PayPal and Honey, that extension that kind of gets in there. So yeah, I think we've got a problem with affiliate marketing in this industry. And also, of course, with the changes with Google and Chrome and just cookies and privacy on the web, I do think it is harder for people, well, marketers, of course, to track people, but also people to keep their information private. I think it's hard for people.
well, and that kind of goes back to just again, I mean, this is a big data play, because not only does PayPal steal your commission, they have their own record of what you bought, how much you bought it for, and it's kind of injecting themselves into the process. So it is, not to be like buyer beware, but you really do need to look out for yourself. The web may look innocent, but it is anything but. It's, you know, essentially just it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
Um, it's something, that you really do have to look out for yourself. Um, just because else, yeah, I mean this is what happens. Is people will take advantage of, not in that essence, knowledge is power. Um, you know, um, and if you don't have the knowledge, the sad part is like, the only guardrail is human morality, which has been shown to kind of, you know, fail and fail again. So it's something that, again, just look out for yourself. Again, um and seriously, before you install any software, I think this just kind of from a cybersecurity hygiene perspective, and then also just for your sake, is it that hard to search for coupon codes, um, from a reputable site before you buy something? Maybe. I mean, it may take you one to
Yeah.
5 minutes, right? But if you find yourself spending hours a day looking for coupon codes, perhaps the issue is not the coupon code, unless your job is a professional online shopper. I wouldn't put it past people,
Yeah,
but I mean, consider the cost. Um,
for sure. Well, yeah, there's a lot. Well, and also, yes, speaking of our sponsor before sunset.ai, what an excellent tool for creating your to-do list and maximizing your productivity. So, yeah, we should definitely mention we do get a little affiliate commission should you choose to use our promo code 20 Tech Talk Live to save 25% off your subscription. If you choose to give it a shot, we greatly appreciate it. Of course, no pressure. And yeah, we highly recommend it.
and don't use honey if you sign up for it.
Yeah, please,
Um,
no.
you'll get nothing, and well, you may get 80 cents and a tracking cookie that follows you around everywhere. So, if your dignity
Well,
is worth 80 cents, then I guess I can't stop you, but, think about it.
absolutely, though. I mean, well, these are topics that don't get covered all the time, and so I think it's worth keeping people updated. And I hadn't thought of the honey extension for a long time until today, and I've uninstalled it. It is completely gone. I don't think I even found it very useful. Maybe once or twice years ago, but knowing what I know now, wow, yeah, take that off your computer. Like, yeah, this is definitely not something you want. And I can see why creators are very upset. So, anyway, well, this has been a great show as always tech news to discuss. And yeah, we're here every normally Tuesday, but this holiday there's quite a lot of things going on that are messing with our plans. So next week is New Year's Eve. We will not be live next Tuesday night. Sam, when should we be live?
That's an excellent question. I mean, we may just start 2025 strong and come back January 7th. Um,
Yeah,
I mean, we
let's
had
do
a
that.
double packed episode, hopefully these tech guys can take a break for the holidays just like, normal people. But, if O5 comes out between now and New Year's, hey, you'll catch us slacking, but rarely do we do this. Again, special special few weeks here. Enjoy your holiday
Absolutely.
season. Spend it with the people you care about and love, and ring in the new year the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday, January 7th, same time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. So we will be here as always.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you guys very soon. Have a great end to your year, and we'll talk tech in 2 weeks.